Okay, well, welcome everyone. I'm Mark Pinchot, Adult Services Director here at Phoenixville Library, and it gives me pleasure to introduce Rosalyn Sheckleford to you folks tonight for a very interesting topic, shining light on an aspect of Phoenixville history as experienced by the African American community here in terms of Negro League Baseball. Later on tonight, we are going to learn more about Phoenixville's Juneteenth celebration with a speaker we're going to have, who's on her way, I hope, from Blackbird Projects. So first up, Rosalyn Sheckleford of Diversity in Action. Please welcome her.
Good evening, everybody. I am going to tell you about Negro baseball in Phoenixville, but we're going to start with Negro baseball in the mid-1800s, and we will work ourselves from there through to 1952 Phoenixville, okay? Ready? The rise of organizational baseball after the Civil War, it led to early attempts to segregate the sport. The National Association of Amateur Baseball Players, they rejected Negro membership in 1867 and again in 1876. Now in 1876, the National Association was replaced with the Professional League due to mismanagement. Ultimately, the owners of the Professional National League, they adopted a gentleman's agreement to keep it a white man's game. Subsequently, Negro players found their greatest opportunities with traveling teams in 1920 until Rube Foster launched Negro League Baseball. Records exist of an abbreviated game between two Negro teams as far back as 1855, and by the end of the decade, there are several Negro clubs in the area. Negro men continued to play, and in 1884, catcher Moses Fleetwood Walker of the Toledo Blue Stockings, he became the first to play at what was then considered a major league. However, Walker and fellow Negro players faced outright hostility and physical intimidation from both teammates and opponents. The issue was that teams were often at the mercy of white booking agents who controlled access to the larger stadium. In one case, superstar Cap Anson of the White Stockings, he threatened to cancel a game if Walker was in the lineup. Racial tensions persisted throughout, and in 1887, Negro men were barred from signing new contracts in that circuit as well. Now eventually, the Cuban Giants, formed in 1885, okay?
Yes.
The Cuban Giants, formed in 1885, under the pretense of being dark-skinned Latin Americans who traversed the East in a private railroad car to play local squads. The Giants enjoyed impressive success against both black and white opponents, winning 154 of 188 games in 1895. Except for attempts to pass Negro men off as Spanish or Native Americans, there would be no more Negro men in white professional leagues for more than 4 decades. Eventually, the first colored championship of the world was held in 1903, with pitcher Rube Foster leading the Cuban ex-Giants to victory over the Philadelphia Giants. But sadly, the Negro National League disbanded in 1948. In the meantime, Major League Baseball was proving slow to change. As late as 1953, only 6 of 16 teams were fielding Negro male players. However, historic accomplishments by young stars like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and Ernie Banks, they soon prompted organizations to change their ways. And in 1959, the Red Sox became the last major league team to integrate with the addition of infielder Elijah Pumpsie Green. Now I'm going to tell you about the 10 most prominent past Negro baseball players. We're going to start with Satchel Paige, who played from 1927 through 1947. Satchel was 6 feet 3 inches tall. He was skinny, but he threw hard. He was the only Negro League legend who got to play in the major leagues. He turned 47 during the 1953 season. He'd even made a one-game cameo with the Kansas City A's in 1965 at the age of 59. His personal quote was, "I got bloopers, loopers, and droopers. I got a jump ball, a screwball, a wobbly ball, a whipsy-dipsy ball, a hurry ball, a nothing ball, and a bat dodger. My b-ball goes wherever I want it to be. Sometimes I throw with my knuckles, some with 2 fingers, and some I throw underhand and sidearms. I keep my thumbs off the ball and use 3 fingers. The middle finger sticks up high like a bent fork. It works best for me." Then we're going to go to Oscar Charleston. He played 1915 through 1941. Charleston was compared to Speaker for the way he played a shallow field and ran everything down. He was also compared to Ruth for his power. He was like Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, and Tris Speaker rolled into one. Charleston was a 5-tool player. He was rated 4th greatest player of all time behind Ruth, Honus, Wagner, and Hayes. Oscar was a tremendous left-handed hitter who could also bunt, steal 100 bases a year, and cover center field as well as anyone before him or since. Now we see Josh Gibson. He played from 1930 through 1946. Gibson was Paige's battermate on the Pittsburgh Crawfords. His power was phenomenal, yet researchers were unable to verify whether he hit a home run completely out of Yankee Stadium in 1930. But they did unearth contemporary accounts of a 480-foot home run when he was just 18 years of age. Historians list him 3rd all-time among players with at least 2,006 at-bats. Gibson's power was legendary, with a .351 average and 2nd in home runs with .223. He was a good defensive catcher with a strong arm. Unfortunately, Gibson also had many off-field issues. His wife died giving birth to twins in 1930, and he suffered from health issues, including a brain tumor that put him in a coma and a drinking problem. He ultimately died of a brain hemorrhage in 1947 at just 35 years of age. Another player quoted, "I played with Willie Mays and Hank Aaron. They were tremendous players, but they were no Josh Gibson." Then we go to John Henry Pop Lloyd, 1907 through 1932. Baseball historians concur that Lloyd was one of the greatest Negro players ever. Lloyd was also referred to as the Black Honus Wagner, a slick fielding shortstop with speed and hitting ability from the left side. Lloyd's early years came before the Negro Leagues became organized in the 1920s, yet he remained one of the league's biggest stars in his 40s. He earned the name Pop later in his career when he became a father figure and a mentor to the young players. Babe Ruth, in response to a question by an announcer, he eliminated the color distinction when he stated that Lloyd was his choice as the greatest baseball player of all time. Buck Leonard, 1934 through 48. Leonard wasn't a big man at 5'11", 185 pounds. He was regarded as an excellent fielder. His swing was compared to a left-handed version of Hank Aaron, a quick, easy stroke that generated a lot of power. Paige was the first Negro leader inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1971, but Leonard was elected the following year along with Gibson. Leonard was still alive. He died in 1997 at age 90. Leonard didn't actually join the Negro League until he was 26 years of age. Statements were made that first basemen were often the clowns of the team. They would make all kinds of contortions and grimaces, anything that would entertain the fans. His personal quote was, "I only wish could have played in the big league when I was young enough to show what I could do. When an offer was given to me to join up, I was too old, and I knew it." Turkey Streamer, 1920 through 1940. Recent research indicates that Streamer hit the most home runs in Negro Leaguers history, not Mule Suttles or Josh Gibson. There are also accounts that he played a great center field and that only Cool Papa Bell may have been faster. When the Hall of Fame inducted Negro leaguers in 1971, Streamer believed he would get the call. Instead, from 1971 through 1977, the Hall of Fame elected 9 players. From 1978 to 1995, the Hall of Fame elected only 2 Negro Leaguers. Streamer died in 1979 and was finally elected to the Hall in 2000. Streamer tended to talk to his bats as if they were human beings. He would carry the best of them in violin cases. He carried around different sized bats in different situations. After games, back at the hotel, his teammates would overhear him thanking his bats for delivering big hits or admonishing them for popping up. He was known to threaten a bat that slumped with an axe, and sleep with a bat that had been particularly good that day. It goes without saying that he never let anyone use any of his bats. Mules Suttles, 1923 through 1944. Big and powerful. He hit for average as well as power, and definitely wasn't afraid of striking out. He credited with a .371 average in exhibitions against white major leagues. He was unfairly passed over for the Hall of Fame in the initial year of elections and wasn't voted in until 2006. Mule Suttles was compared to major leaguer Jim Thornton, except that Suttles was right-handed. In Havana's Tropical Park, the center field fence was 60 feet high and more than 500 feet from the plate. Teammate Willie Wells recalls a gargantuan drive that carried over the head of the soldiers on horseback riding crowd control behind the fence, a total of about 600 feet. Afterwards, the marker was placed at the spot commemorizing the monstrous homer. Ray Dandridge, 1933 through 44. Late in his career, Dandridge signed with the New York Giants. The Giants sent him to AAA Minneapolis in 1949 when he was 35 years of age. He hit .362, .396, .487. The next year, he hit .311, .355, .405 with 11 home runs and was named League MVP. In 1951, he hit .324, yet the Giants never called him back. Another player quoted, "There really isn't a similar player. Dandridge could hit, he had speed, and was a tremendous third baseman who could have played shortstop, except that he was a teammate of Hall of Famer Willie Wells. He was sort of a hybrid of Ozzie Smith and George Brett." Cool Papa Bell. Bell was a switch hitter with tremendous speed. You've also heard the one about him getting up to turn off the light and being back in bed before the light went out. Bell certainly would have been a 3,000 hit guy in the majors. The easy comparison would be Rickey Henderson because of the stolen bases, but Bell lacked Henderson's power. He listed at 6 feet, but just weighed 155 pounds. Once he hit a line drive right past my ear," said one of his teammates. I turned around and saw the ball hit his rear, sliding into second. My favorite quote about Cool Papa Bell comes from an old friend who was often asked just how fast was Cool Papa Bell. And he would always answer, "Faster than that." Willie Wells, 1924 through 1948. Nicknamed the Devil, where he played in the winter in Mexico, apparently from opposing players who quickly learned to try to avoid hitting the ball in his direction. His hitting average suggests a guy who hit for average and power. Apparently, his weakness was his throwing arm. At one point, he was part of the $1 million infield for the Newark Eagles because his speed could outrun anything. Wells was considered the greatest shortstop in the world and was posthumously initiated into Hall of Fame after his death. Another player said, "You should have seen Willie Wells play shortstop, as good as Ozzie Smith and a better hitter." Now I'm going to take you into Negro history in Phoenixville. 1938 was the first recorded Negro team. The team was called the Northside Tigers, started by James Fortbay. The team played at what was then Chico Field, which was next to the reservoir. The team brought out large crowds of Negro families every Sunday for entertainment and for support. The Northside Tigers were mediocre at best, and they usually lost most games against their white counterparts. Yet Negro families supported them by selling dinners and having fundraisers to help with equipment and other needs. Most of the Negro community attended games as onlookers, and they took players back and forth to practices. The team even had their own clubhouse at 115 Railroad Street for their meeting. The Northside Tigers lasted a couple of years until the start of World War II, at which time some of the players volunteered and others were drafted into service. Now first you need to understand that in the late 1930s, there were some very good Negro baseball players in Phoenixville. However, at that time, many of them were unable to complete high school due to the number of children born to the family during that era, usually up to 12 children per family. Children generally attended Memorial Junior High School, which is now Bartley Elementary. By ninth grade, when young Negro boys reached the age of 14, they qualified for working papers. This was, in many cases, a necessity for them to work for the survival of the family. Now let me explain conditions for most Negro families in Phoenixville during that time. Most lived on the north side of Phoenixville because the borough would not sell houses to Negro families on the main streets, such as Star, Gay, Main, Bridge Streets, or the avenues, such as Washington and First and Fifth Avenues. This forced them to live on sided streets, such as Grover, Breckenridge, High, and Railroad Streets. Most young Negro men supported their families, working at then the Reading Railroad, the Pennsylvania Railroad, and McAvoy Brick Company. Contrary to popular belief, very few Negro men were hired at the steel mill. Women worked as maids in white homes until after World War II, when the arrival of the Valley Forge Army Hospital opened up jobs in kitchens and in housekeeping. Young boys swept up in stores or whatever jobs they could get. Now, housing, jobs, and education were a major issue in the Negro community in Phoenixville during the 1930s and 40s. Yet there were also areas on the north side of Phoenixville where Negro families lived in more poverty than most. This area was labeled the scape level, where houses had no electricity and no running water. These families could only afford the bare necessities. Therefore, they were unable to pursue a goal in sports, not because of a lack of skill, but because of a lack of finances. Eventually, the borough placed an ordinance which made this type of housing illegal, forcing the family to find other homes. Now, due to geographic locations, Negro and poorer white children resided in the same areas, and they played baseball together. Yet this did not stop the white children from calling their counterparts monkeys and other derogatory names, even though they themselves were labeled as poor white trash by other whites through the ignorance of those who were more fortunate than themselves. Finally, in the early 1950s, the role of Negro children in Phoenixville upgraded. A Little League opened in Reeves Park for young boys ages 8 through 12. Eventually, the best players of each team then formed an all-star team who went on to win a state championship. Those students who were fortunate enough to complete high school and excel in baseball were sponsored by the American Legion, an organization which sponsored teams in many different parts of Chester County. Some of the students at Phoenixville High School, Jimmy Johnson, Andre Thornton, and Tom Ramsey, just to name a few, were very good baseball players. Andre Thornton's skills ultimately afforded him the opportunity to begin his professional career with the Phillies at 18 years of age and retire with the Cleveland Indians after 17 years of pro ball. In essence, Andre Thornton put the name of Phoenixville on the map. Once he made the major leagues, many of the elders in the community, particularly Marion and Alex Teruzzi, helped him as if he were their own, as well as Dab England and Chester Miller, who attended most of his games both in and out of state for support. Dinners were held in his honor at Delaquilla's and the Firehouse. Ultimately, September 16th was officially declared Andre Thornton Day in Phoenixville, as he was presented with the key to the city by then Mayor Gray. Now, between 1944 and 1949, a baseball team called the Northside Giants joined with the Phoenixville Community Baseball League. The Giants were often called the Twilight Team because all teams started at 5:30 p.m. and ended once it became dark, since at that time there were no lights in Washington Field. The games drew large crowds of Negro families in support of their team. During that era in Phoenixville, all white baseball teams were sponsored by the Moose Club, the Slovak Club, the Polish Club, the Italian Club, and the Orioles, all social organizations, and all discriminated against Negroes. However, the Northtown Giants passed the hat around at each game and found other ways to support themselves and pay their own entry fees. The Giants played at least one game a week, and always against all white teams. Negro families always supported their players, not only because of the love of the game and pride in their team, but Phoenixville offered no other types of entertainment for Negro families. Because of that, baseball was considered the highlight of the week. The Giants had an excellent record, and they won mostly every game they played, even though all the umpires were white and often their calls were unfair. The White League couldn't do a thing about that. Black players continued to dominate the white teams to a point where in 1949, white leaguers simply refused to play with the Giants anymore. As time progressed, 1952, Don Coppage became the first black official at Phoenixville High School through the Pennsylvania Interathletic Association, and to this day, African American sports persons are still fighting for equality. The end.
Questions?
I have to confess that I am a football and basketball freak. I know everything that I've given you has been through research. I know very little personally about baseball. So if you have any questions, and if anyone happens to know the answer, I'd appreciate some help in that area. Okay? Any questions? Thank you very much.
Yep.
I don't have a question, but I've been in Phoenixville 24 years, and I've often heard that Billy Thornton was probably a better athlete than Andre Thornton all those years, you know, when they were kids and so forth, and that he was faster and better just about every sport. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard that many times.
I'm gonna ask him.
Well,
Yes.
his sister's
Yeah.
right.
Yes, that is true. Andre will admit that himself.
Oh.
I don't know the details behind, why Billy wasn't able to go further, things like that. But yes, both of them will admit to that.
It's impressive.
That's
I was gonna say,
clarifying.
so we will.
And
Yeah,
Billy
question.
was a cop,
Yeah.
correct?
37 years.
Was he the first black cop?
He was not the first, he was the third. He was actually the third. Richard Cobbage was the first.
Okay.
Mr. Cobbage, it was
Okay.
his brother,
Okay.
was the very first one.
And Billy's wife was my softball coach.
Oh, Clara, oh, that's great. Very nice, very nice.
Anything else? Okay, thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you. Well, Theresa, you gonna do the honors? Okay.
So I'm going to be put on the spot now. Let me take this off. Right now, we're going to talk a little bit about Juneteenth,
Yeah.
which, by the way, Rosalyn is the chair of the planning committee.
Hey.
So
Okay.
there's 4 organizations who decided to get together this year and plan a Juneteenth celebration downtown, which will take place on June 19th from 2 to 6. We have downtown blocked off, the 200 block of Bridge Street. Those organizations are Diversity in Action, which Rosalyn is a part of, Orion Communities, Communities That Care, and Blacklight Projects. I'm the president of Blacklight Projects, and our mission is to document and highlight all of Phoenixville's local history makers and notables, people, places, and things. So of course, when I heard about this, I had to come and see and be a part of that. But as well, yes, Andre is actually my brother. He's the middle child. I'm the baby of the family. I hesitated to say that word, but I'm the baby of the family. But Juneteenth, please feel free to come out. We have all kinds of entertainment for you. We got jazz bands, we're gonna have food, we're gonna have reenactors and street performers, drummers, a step show by some children, just a whole lot of activity, plenty of vendors for you to come and be able to purchase items or just participate. The Colonial Theater is starting things off on June 16th with the showings of Hair Love and Respect, Aretha Franklin's Respect. So feel free to take part in those. But the Juneteenth ceremony will be from 2 to 6 on Sunday. So stop by, come on out. In addition, we're doing something to try and support the local black-owned businesses in Phoenixville, and we're having a Juneteenth Black Business Raffle. And we're just hoping that folks will go around and visit the different businesses, register at the businesses, it's all free, and on July 1st, we're gonna raffle off a big basket from items from the different businesses and things like that. But that'll give you an opportunity just to see what they do, how they operate, things like that, as well as some online businesses. For the online ones, we're just asking you to go to their site and register. That's all you have to do, and then you're automatically entered in the raffle. Did anyone have any questions about Juneteenth?
Is registration in general required for the?
It's not required. We were hoping folks would register once, so just so we'd have some idea of how many people were going to be attending. And then obviously to get your contact information so we can keep you informed of the Juneteenth for the future and anything else that the 4 organizations might be doing.
Okay, great.
Are there any other questions about Juneteenth?
Is
Or
that,
about
is
Blackbird
that on the
Projects?
website that was affiliated with this?
It should be on all of the websites of those organizations, so Diversity in
Okay,
Action.
Phoenixville patch?
Has it been put on patch? I'm not sure if we got it on patch. But you can go to Eventbrite and look for
Okay.
2022 Phoenixville Juneteenth, and you'll see all the information come up. Or you can contact any one of the 4 organizations.
It's in the library's newsletter too, weekly email
Okay.
newsletter, if you're on that.
And generally everything is free except for whatever you choose to purchase from the vendors, of course. And we just hope to have a good time. Juneteenth actually came to Phoenixville back in the late 1990s, early 2000s by one of our tributes, Pam Dunn. And she used to have a big deal. And she had a lot of things that she had to go through during that time period, trying to get it started, things like that. We have information on that as Blacklight Projects. But she made it work, and it was great. Unfortunately, Pam passed away early in life, and once she passed, so did the Juneteenth celebrations. So in 2019, the three organizations, Diversity in Action, Orion Communities, and Blacklight Projects, decided to bring it back. We were planning everything for 2020 when, okay, so COVID broke down everything. But we did have a virtual celebration in 2021. We had a 7-day event virtually. All of those videos are located on Diversity in Action's Facebook page, so you can still see what we did then. But this will be the first time Juneteenth will be live and in person again in just about 20 years. So we're excited about it. Tell your friends about it. Just bring everybody. It's for kids and adults and older folks, and it's just for everybody. Anybody have any questions about that, or Blacklight Projects, or anything of that sort? Go ahead, Lou.
Tell us a little bit more about Blacklight's projects.
Sure. Blackbird Projects is a nonprofit organization here in Phoenixville, and we're celebrating our 5th anniversary this year. And our whole intent is to, like I mentioned, document and highlight Phoenixville's local Black history makers. One of our missions is to also encourage other communities to start a Blacklight Projects for their community as well. But we focus all on Phoenixville people, those who have had some kind of effect on the community, those who have actually done history-making events. I'm sure you wouldn't have noticed, but a couple of our tributes were in the presentation that Ms. Rosalyn presented, Jimmy Johnson, for example. And to find out about these people, you can come to our website. But we will also be hosting our first Blacklight Ball September 16th, Andre Thornton Day of 2022. We're celebrating because it's our 5th anniversary, and it's the 40th anniversary of Andre Thornton Day. And that's the day that we celebrate annually with a free community event. But the Blacklight Ball will be a fundraising event, so I hope you will be interested in coming out for that. And again, there'll be food and entertainment and just fun to celebrate our legacies. And Blacklight Project started in 2017 through the passing of one of my other brothers, unfortunately. And at his service, one of his friends kept mentioning all of these different highlights that he had done. And even as his sister, I wasn't aware of. So myself and his best friend just started having conversations about how much we don't know about one another in the Black community. And basically out of that, then Blacklight Projects was born. For a memorial service for him, I reached out to folks and said, hey, this is what we want to do. Is anybody interested? We got people interested, and we've been working strong ever since. In 2020, we officially got our nonprofit status, but we started in 2017. So we're moving along. We help the high school with their Black History programs every year. That was one of our first things. We nominate folks for their Wall of Fame and their Sports Hall of Fame. I'm not sure how many of you know about that. And our first person to get on the Wall of Fame at the high school was Portia Ramsey, who was the first African American to be tenured with a school district. She was a 2nd grade teacher for over 30 years. So that was one of the first things that we did as Blacklight Projects. Every year since then, we've celebrated for Andre Thornton Day, helped with the high school, and then most recently, we started in the middle school by offering something that we call a Young Voices Contest. So we announce a theme in September at Andre Thornton Day, provide that to the middle schoolers, and ask them to do an essay. Last year's theme was, what is Black Girl Magic? And we have had several entrants, and the winner of that one was Madison Baroni. She was a 6th grader. So we were able to go and present her with a check for $150 because she was the grand prize winner. And that's something we intend to do for years to come to get to our middle schoolers. And eventually we want to, just be able to educate anyone who's interested in learning about the Black community of Phoenixville, period. Through events, through programs, through exhibits, through presentations, through things like this. Mark had us do a presentation last year, I think it was, or the year before, I can't remember.
Last year, yeah.
So if you're interested in helping, volunteering, donating, any of that, being involved, don't hesitate to contact me. We're blpphoenixville.org, blpphoenixville@gmail.com, that's the email. or BLP, Phoenixville.org. BLP, like Black Light Projects.
Oh,
And I'll explain that too. So black obviously is for the African American community. Light, singular, is to shine the light on these people, these places and things. Things would be an organization, for example. And then projects with an S, because we do that in a variety of different ways. Lots of folks like to say it's Black Lights Project. Black Light Projects. Any questions? Thank you so
Thank you,
much. And let's
Theresa.
give Rosalyn another hand.
Thank you.